Hello and welcome to the Trending Now podcast for this Friday, November 1st, 2024. I'm Louie Butko and thank you for joining us as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. on CHCH, CHCH.com, and streaming live on our Trending Now YouTube page. Coming up on today's show, in just over 72 hours, Americans will head to the polls to elect the next president of the United States as Kamala Harris and Donald Trump make their final push to get out the vote. We'll recap a wild week on the campaign trail and look ahead to Election Day, Tuesday, when Emily Taylor joins us off the top of the show. Meanwhile, in Canadian politics, the Bloc Quebecois says they're willing to work with other parties to topple the governing Liberals, while Prime Minister Justin Trudeau appears to survive a leadership threat within his own party. Jason Gaidola has been covering the story and joins us with the latest. And what comes next after Israel's parliament passed a pair of laws that effectively ban the United Nations agency UNRWA from providing aid to Palestinian refugees? Manesa Dhanabalan joins us with more on that before we say goodbye. And Emily Taylor, I apologize. I had your name wrong in the prompter, but we're going to make sure the bar at the bottom says correct.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Just phonetically, but as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I spelled your name wrong.
It's okay.
Thank you for doing this.
Of course.
You've been producing Trending Now.
I have.
And that requires a lot of following the news, of course,
Yep.
but a lot of following this very, very big story that's been happening for what feels like decades, that being Donald Trump, Kamala Harris. Americans head to the polls on Tuesday. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it's coming to an end because the American election cycle is so long. You're right. It feels like it's been years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because Kamala Harris is running the most condensed presidential campaign we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. 6 months. Most people get a lot of time in between. Most people get, they get the opportunity to introduce themselves again on a bigger stage. You have to give her credit though. Billions of dollars raised, huge endorsements.
Yeah.
We saw J-Lo last night in Vegas. And it is very interesting watching, first of all, the two campaigns, but how the media covers these two campaigns.
Yeah, no, it's very different, and not for I think a terrible reason necessarily. It's so difficult to pick whether or not you basically just run with whatever weird, terrible thing that Trump has said, or do you try and ignore it and you move on? But the problem is that so much of what people are talking about and so much of what he says is off the wall and is deeply offensive and personally attacking a lot of people, whether that be Harris or today Liz Cheney or so many other Democrats, Republicans, lawmakers, DAs, judges, the list goes on and on and on. So I think that we as a trending show, we tend to go with, what are people talking about today? And then let's break that down. So garbage has been trending literally all week.
Yes.
And if you open up your Twitter or your kids are talking about it and you're like, why is garbage trending? That does mean that we're talking about sort of the crazy thing that Trump, Biden, and this comedian have said this week, but we're going to break it down for you.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the idea, is that here you had a comedian call Puerto Rico garbage, and very quickly Republican, it was a joke, you got to move on, blah, blah, blah. And then the second Biden says they are so offended. They can't believe that he would say something like this. And I think that's what always gets me, is just the two sides of the coin and playing both sides that Republicans seem to do well.
This is the first time Trump's ever taken the high road. I just want to throw that in there. I'm sorry to cut you off.
But I mean, just it's fascinating because they are so offended, but they get so offended by wokeness, right? And I don't know. We were talking about the Joe Rogan podcast. Jason's working on that. JD Vance was on Joe Rogan, and I really think it was a missed opportunity for Kamala Harris not to do Joe Rogan.
I think that's fair, but also Joe Rogan is maybe one of the people you don't want to platform and you don't necessarily want to be associated with. And it's tricky, you're right, because Trump's on this mission right now to court a lot of young male voters, right? They're a lot of his base. And he's been not just on, or JD Vance on Joe Rogan, but Trump's done a number of podcasts recently as well, targeted towards young white men. Whereas Harris has definitely taken a very different approach to it. And is it a lost opportunity? Maybe, but I don't know if she wants to be associated with Joe Rogan. I think that's really fair. Like she the Call Her Daddy podcast. Yeah. I don't think Trump's going to talk to Alex Earl on Call Her Daddy.
Yeah.
She's doing like the late night rounds. Trump is making fun of every late night host who talks to her, saying, oh, was it Kimmel or was it someone is boring and I'll never watch him again? Stephen Colbert. Yeah.
I actually happened to watch Colbert last night. I don't normally stay up that late to watch it. I had trouble sleeping last night. Colbert was on. It really is interesting because Jordan Klepper is on The Daily Show, and he put out this idea, the Madison Square Garden rally.
Yep.
Right? And he said, if this is your final pitch to voters, and who do you bring out? Dr. Phil, Hulk Hogan, Tony Hinchcliffe, who's going to make an offensive joke. Like, this is your final pitch? Like, that's who you got? And then meanwhile, again, celebrities aren't everything, but LeBron James today, yesterday, endorsing Kamala Harris. Jennifer Lopez speaking at her rally. I always get shocked at the fact that the election is this close.
Yeah.
But I am a Canadian. I do watch more
more American news than Canadian.
Yeah. But it's just gut check time.
Yeah.
What are you feeling going into Tuesday?
Oh God. I need to think that it's Harris for my own peace of mind. For the past, Trump began his campaign in January-ish was the big push, or?
Well, yeah, 2015. I mean, that's the other thing about Trump,
it's been
right?
so long.
And, but we mentioned that off the top about how the media covers these two campaigns. Yeah. What can Trump possibly say in the next 3 days?
Yeah.
And there was some Jeffrey Epstein Daily Beast bombshell report yesterday. Michael Wolff, famous writer who's covered Trump in depth, released these tapes in which Jeffrey Epstein is talking about Trump's presidential. This is pre-suicide, right? Sorry, I had to for all the conspiracy theorists out there. But like, there's nothing that Trump can say at this point that would turn his base, which is 47% of the country, basically, against him, which I think is, which is a scary thought sometimes.
I think it's the same for Harris, though. Like, what is it that she's going to say in the next 3-4 days that are going to get people to turn to her instead, right? Like, people know who they're voting for this close up to it. Maybe there's a small group, but really with these swing states that are so close, like neck and neck, like 48-49, 47-48, just very, very close polling. These are people who probably just simply are not responding to polling very well, that are going to choose whether or not they vote in general. Things like that. They're not like, ooh, Trump or Harris, right? Like, most people know. Yeah. Trump's been around in the political sphere for 10 years, almost, at this point. People know who he is. Yeah. He has not surprised anyone in this campaign by saying anything new. We know exactly who he is and where he's coming from.
Well, Real Clear Politics, they have their RCP poll averages, which takes basically all the big polls and aggregates them into one. So their RCP national average has Trump up 0.3.
Okay.
But in battleground states, again, it is like within the margin of error, but this flips literally every day. And that's what we're talking about, the blue wall, the Georgia, the Ohio, like those states are going to be crucial. Yeah. Both Trump and Harris are going to be within 7 miles of each other in Wisconsin tonight, in Milwaukee.
And they were both just in Wisconsin a couple days earlier, at some point this week. They've both been in Wisconsin already in the past couple of days.
But we've also seen Trump campaign, like, he's not, like, this is what kicked Hillary's ass back in 2016. She didn't go to Pennsylvania. She didn't go to Michigan. Trump's big rally was at Madison Square Garden.
That was a weird choice.
He's not winning New York.
No.
Yesterday, he went to New Mexico.
Blue all through and through.
He's not winning New Mexico. And like, while he was there, he also said, I'm here because I got some work to do with the Latinos and the Hispanics. And he did this whole bit about whether they prefer to be called Hispanics, Latinos. Like, that's the other thing, is like, every time you talk about somebody who comes out of a Trump rally, it was just so much fun. Like, he just rambled for 3 hours and it was so much fun. Like, it is a cult of personality that people have bought into with Trump. Because if you just look at these two people, if you listen to these two people speak, it's hard to give him the edge.
It is. But he promises false hope, right? Every single time he meets with any group, he goes, yes, I'll make your promise, whatever it is, right? He shows up at a restaurant and to speak to like everyday people, and he's like, what is it you want? And they're like, no taxation on tips. And he's like, I got you, you know? He goes to business leaders and he asks, what is it that you want? And they go, tariffs on this, tax breaks on this, whatever it is. And he goes, I got you, I can do that. Yeah. He's selling completely false hope. He has no idea even what he's promised anymore at this point to all of these various groups, and no way of truly achieving it, right? So it's a cult of personality, and people want change away from the establishment of Biden, of career politicians, all of these things, but he's promising people a lot of things that they really, really want. Yeah. And I get that. I get that can be enticing. Maybe you don't follow politics all that closely. Maybe you're down on your luck in various ways, and he comes up and he says, I can fix that.
I wish I didn't follow politics.
I wish I didn't follow politics either.
I know it's a part of our job. We are literally on a show called Trending Now.
When I'll retire, though, and I'm going to throw my phone and I'm going to delete Twitter, and it will be a beautiful, magical day.
The day I'm not working in media anymore, like I wish I could plead ignorance. And like I get like annoyed when like I tell my friend something that's pretty like big news, like something that Trump had did or something that he had said, and like I didn't see that. I'm like, how did you not see it? How? Like, what do you watch? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Like, I would love to be in this sort of ignorance is bliss sort of mentality, and I think that's a lot of thing with Trump voters is that they're getting very targeted media. By the way, if you are in one of those interior states that's going to go red no matter what. You're listening to radio stations that agree with your views. You're watching TV shows like Fox News is huge. And
absolutely.
You watch the slant of Fox News. It's pretty obvious. But I would love to be able to plead ignorant on major issues. But
and I love also the reverse of that is when someone will be like with a group of friends and like, oh, did you see this? I'm like, yep. Did you see this? Did you hear about Yes. Yeah. The other side said to me, there's nothing that you really miss, is there? I'm like, I wish.
I used to love that. Like I used to that's why I got into the business, because I loved being the first person to tell people, hey, did you see this? Like, did you see this? Did you read this? Even like my friends, I'll still be like, did you see this type thing? The other thing about this election, it's not just for president, Senate, the House. We could be looking at a very, very different country down south come Wednesday. Yeah. I don't think the presidency is, I think Trump's going to, I've said this before, I think Trump is going to claim that he won very early Tuesday night. I think he did it. He said we won late Tuesday night in 2020. Of course, he didn't. I'm not worried.
Oh, I'm worried.
You're worried. Yeah.
I'm worried.
Yeah.
I think no matter how this ends up, and he very well could win. This is not out of the question, but I very much am worried about the implications just in the near future, security-wise. And just a little tease for Trending Now, but we're doing a story on this today. Pre-election, we have poll workers across battleground states specifically putting up bulletproof glass, metal detectors, sniffer dogs. This has never happened before, ever, in the history of American elections. Post-election, you have Trump supporters already talking about how fun it's going to be when they storm the Capitol, another major institution, wherever it is, whether that be January 6th, or they say, screw it, we're not waiting for the court challenges, we're doing it right now, and it's just after the election. Well, I don't know.
And we saw some of those armed militias. I just watched a documentary on the 2020 election. Like, they were in Arizona while they were still counting, right? Yeah. This was pre-January 6th. They went down to the Tucson, wherever it was in Arizona, with guns, trying to protest. Happened in Michigan as well. And that led to the whole plot on Gretchen Whitmer and all that stuff. It's an interesting time.
Woo!
Let's get to Canadian politics. I know you're busy. You got a show put together, so thank you for doing the big plans for the weekend.
No, and I'm excited about that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Everybody I've talked to today, like Joanna, same idea. Like, what are you doing this weekend? Nothing.
It was Halloween last weekend. There was too many things happening.
November. No Christmas mode for you, though.
No.
Okay.
Not for me yet.
Thanks for doing this, Emily.
Thank you.
All right. Emily Taylor, she is producing this week, producing next week. So if you're wondering where she's been, she's doing all the behind-the-scenes legwork that gets trending now on the air. Still had Jason Gaidola going to be by to talk Canadian politics. We'll check into a lot of provincial election news. But I wanted to get to this. The LA Dodgers, including Shohei Ohtani and his dog, celebrated their 8th World Series championship with a downtown parade today. 7 double-decker buses filled with players, their families, and the coaching staff rolled through streets packed on both sides with blue-clad fans. Now, the LA Police Department estimated the crowd to be 150,000 people. Shirtless Kike Hernandez, hung over the front of the bus with a beer in his hand. Ohtani held his dog Decoy in his arms with his wife Mamiko nearby. Through a translator, he said, "I'm totally overwhelmed with the amount of fans who are here. It's been an incredible year. I'm so happy that I was able to contribute. The fans, everybody's been so welcoming." Asked if he would take off his shirt like Hernandez, a smiling Ohtani shook his head and replied in English, "No. Never." Fans cheered and waved. Their heroes parade occurred on what would have been the 64th birthday of Fernando Valenzuela. The 1981 Cy Young Award winner and Rookie of the Year died days before the World Series began. Of course, Dodgers defeated the Yankees in 5 games, clinching the title with a 7-6 victory in the Bronx on Wednesday. For more on that game, that series, and the end of the MLB season, before we get to the Canadian politics stuff, Jason Gaidola is sitting beside me. Jason, what's up, buddy?
What's going on? And with the check-in, what's up?
The Dodgers. Money can buy happiness.
Money can buy happiness.
They spent
I know.
$1.6 billion this offseason on contracts, and it paid off.
Everything seems to be paying off. I mean, I was going on your point to the parade. It's like kind of making up for 2020 because they didn't get their parade then.
Yeah.
But looks like, I mean, money can always, It
was the Dodgers and Yankees, bro.
If you're going to spend, it doesn't guarantee you, but it sure does increase your chances very much so to like get to where you're at. I mean, they're a loaded team. They also have a few players that have been there for quite a while. They've built this team, even though they've been so stacked. They've kind of had more or less the same team. There hasn't been too many changes.
Nope.
More add-on. Like they reload. They don't rebuild.
Shohei. Freddie Freeman wasn't on that 2020 team. He won
wasn't.
He won with Atlanta in 2021. But again, championship caliber players coming aboard. Nice to see Kevin Kiermaier.
Yeah.
Said it was going to be his last season.
Teoscar
Hernandez had a great start to the playoffs. And Freddie Freeman, what a great story. And I know it's been talked to death about his Canadian roots and his parents both being Canadian and him playing for Canada because of his mom. Do you claim him as one of our own? Do we get to call him? It's funny. Global last night had a story on Freddie Freeman, and they called him the first Canadian American to win World Series MVP. I didn't hear anyone else calling him that.
I mean, it's not wrong. Yeah. I mean, it's not wrong at all. But I mean, he spent his entire life in California.
Born in California, yeah.
It's a great story. No, I think there's a lot of validity. I mean, if Canadians are celebrating his achievements and obviously his play was just unbelievable. I mean, I still can't get over that grand slam from Game 1.
Yeah.
I think it's all right. I mean, I think it comes down to him deciding to represent the national team. I think that says it all. Whether you're originally from a certain country or you move somewhere else, I think it's your right to choose the nation you want to represent, especially if, like, whether you live there or you pay taxes there or you have roots tied to from your family.
And it's not like he's playing for Canada because he couldn't make U.S., right? Like he could definitely make the U.S., especially now with a World Series MVP in his trophy case to go along with his other World Series title. Did you watch every game? Did you watch every inning? How invested were you?
I watched most of the series. I didn't catch everything. Just because
it's a busy time for sports.
It's a busy. It was the equinox too.
Yeah.
But the drive home, like I always catch the back end of the game. So there was a lot of stuff I missed, even though I caught it up in the highlights. But I still thought it was a pretty compelling series, even though it ended in 5. And I know there's a lot of I guess you can say bitterness about it. Everyone's like, we want 7. I mean, of course we want it, but like it's. Not everything's going to go to Game 7. It's just what it was, and I guess at the end of it, a lot of it you can attribute to the fact that I'm so shocked how the Yankees didn't at least get at least one more game. I thought at least 6 games.
They blew it. They straight up You're up 5-0. You could have gone to the 6th inning. There were 2 outs.
Yeah.
You know, that play at first base. First of all, the Judge drop.
Yep.
The play it felt very reminiscent of the Texas Blue Jays series, right? There was that inning from hell for Texas fans. That was the beer throwing Jose Bautista bat flip inning, right? Yeah. There's everything that built up to it. I don't know.
I just can't imagine, like, especially for me, seeing the Yankees go through their dynasties and how Yankee Stadium was like a fortress. It's like the mecca of baseball, and the pressure and the noise, and you know those like I've watched the game in Yankee Stadium. They are passionate out there, and it was almost surreal watching them crumble at home in the Bronx. Yeah. It was hard to watch, actually. It was just like, I can't believe a Yankee team allowed this to happen. I'd one thing if it happened on the road, but at home, that's a tough way to lose.
Aaron Judge, your $1 billion guy, right?
Exactly.
He had the 1 home run. You know,
it's star power, right? When you're a Yankee, there's star power. There's the expectation to win. There's the expectation to execute, and it was the complete opposite.
Are you getting your hopes up that maybe Juan Soto may one day be a Toronto Blue Jay? Are you? That guy on the right there, you know, in the back? Am I going to fall for that again? The Shohei Ohtani?
He's likely going to get $700 million. If you're Rogers,
I was just
about to pay that?
My Rogers bill was $120 this month, so
it's probably going
that's
up
where it's
either
going
way.
But we brought you on to talk about that. We also brought you on to talk about the Bloc Quebecois.
Yes,
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is adamant that he won't give in to help topple the Trudeau government. A lot of people saying his pension doesn't kick in. It's being talked about a lot, but let's talk about the Bloc Quebecois leader. A big move, kind of anticipated. He had set that deadline for late October. Didn't get the promises that he wanted from Trudeau, but how significant is it of the Bloc saying we might topple this government?
Well, it's pretty significant in terms of forcing. It's going to force, obviously, the Trudeau administration to act in some way, but there's not going to be. I highly doubt there's going to be an election in the winter. Yeah. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they know better than that. But in terms of actually toppling the government, it's huge in terms of the shift in pressure, but not quite. It's not going to be enough because Jagmeet Singh already came out and said and it looks like
we're not helping you.
He's not going to help the Conservatives in the Bloc try to topple down the government. So the way I read it is that they're probably going to wait until the spring and summer, and we'll see how things go there. My guess is that until the NDP is ready to start campaigning for an actual election and going out there and building their platform, they're not going to make a move. So I mean, I wouldn't say don't expect a federal election to happen anytime soon. But it is a significant move, and it's going to obviously it's going to turn up the heat even more. And I mean, and the Liberal caucus already has so much internal strain there.
To that point,
I don't know. Will Trudeau prorogue the Parliament, and that would be a very gutsy move.
We saw that. When was that? That did happen. That was a while ago. I think it was in college.
Before.
Yeah. The last time it happened, prorogued the government for a while. Yeah. Do you think there's a risk of Pierre Poilievre oversaturation in the market right now? We see the commercials, we get the axe the tax. This India thing's not really going away. The security clearance, they seem to have a pretty good attack line on get your security clearance.
I think that's just normal. I think when you're the majority opposition and you probably have a deep coffers to start. I'm not surprised the ads are coming out now for them. I mean, this has been their tactics and their strategy for quite some time, and they've kind of let it ride, and they just keep hammering home the same tactics. So I'm not surprised that I mean, it only feels that way because they're the only ones doing it. But now the Liberals are starting to have a little more. Their ads are starting to come out. It almost feels like the campaign for all the parties is slowly unraveling a little bit. I I mean, I noticed that Poilievre's he started to get a little more specific on terms of policies of what he would do as prime minister, and that's pretty much been his weakness. Yeah. I don't think he's had to do it up until maybe right now. He's starting to sense that, we're definitely, it feels like we're less than a year away from election. I better start giving tidbits of what my actual platform as prime minister is going to be, and I think we're going to slowly see that kind of campaigning unravel now, instead of just saying axe the tax all the time.
I was just about to say, I passed a billboard, axe the tax, right? Like it's but to your point, they have a lot of money, they're spending it, they want to be front and center.
It's just that they're just in a position of leverage to do it right now, while everyone else is kind of cleaning up their own mess.
Yeah, that's well put there.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you doing this, man. What are you working on today? You're doing
U.S. election stuff. Yeah. So
the Rogan appearance.
J.D. Vance and.
Did you watch the whole thing? Did you?
No, I just watched the clips of it. I mean, it's pretty quick that him and Trump go on it back to back, and I heard about Harris, kind of making. A counteroffer,
like I told Emily,
according to Joe Rogan.
Yeah, like I told Emily, I think it was a missed opportunity. I think, because especially the way Rogan has kind of reacted to, like, he challenged J.D. Vance. It wasn't a softball interview. Yeah. He challenged Trump. Yes, Trump sat there for 3 hours. That's the one thing about Rogan. Like, I like my show because it's 20 minutes. Yeah. Like, it's 30 minutes. To sit down for 3 hours for a podcast, like, that's a commitment. They're loyal, right? Then
I mean, I trust. I'm not saying Joe Rogan's the best interview in the world or he's the worst, but I trust him that he'd have a fair interview. And I mean, Trump can babble on for as long as he can. But I mean, the opportunity was there. I guess it really shows. I mean, maybe Harris didn't have the confidence to go 3 hours, right?
Yeah, well, that's it too. And we talk about word salad. That seems to be the attack that gets her. Big Western football game this weekend, eh? Are you going to be there?
Debating it. If not, then I'd say the chances are high that if they make the Yates Cup, then that should be a dandy.
All right, go Stangs. Yeah, all right, thanks for doing this, buddy. All right, Jason Gaidola still ahead. Manesa Dhanabalan, I'm going to stop by before we say goodbye. But on the topic of Canadian politics, how about some provincial politics, where Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe held on to his majority government for the 5th time in a row after his province went to the polls this week. Now, Saskatchewan, one of 3 different provincial elections held this month. I guess last month, along with BC and New Brunswick. Now, this week, also, BC's NDP Premier, David Eby, met with reporters after a nail-biting race that was poised on a knife's edge after the BC Conservatives came out swinging on election night, trailing Eby's party by a single seat. Now, in the end, the race came down to a narrow margin of roughly 22,000 absentee votes, for a battle at the ballot box that was highly contested and rife with controversy. I'm going to say it the British way. Controversy when the Conservative candidate Marina Shapchinov was caught on tape on election night calling Indigenous people savages. But ultimately, Eby and the NDP party will continue to lead the province with a majority. And as mentioned, a similar story of re-election carried out in Saskatchewan, where Scott Moe and his Saskatchewan party made history, securing a win for the 5th time in a row. Meanwhile, in New Brunswick, earlier in the month, Susan Holt put an end to 6 years of Conservative leadership under Blaine Higgs and made history as the province's first ever female premier. Meanwhile, here in Ontario, speculation growing that another election is on the way after Doug Ford announced a $200 rebate for every Ontarian. That's expected to hit the accounts of nearly 15 million Ontarians at a cost of roughly $3 billion. So yeah, we might be heading to the polls a couple of times in the next little bit. All right, to the Middle East now, where the leaders of 15 United Nations agencies and humanitarian organizations warned today that the situation unfolding in northern Gaza is apocalyptic and the entire Palestinian population in the territory risks imminent death from disease, famine, and violence. For more on this, we're joined by Manesa Dhanabalan. This is all tied to the UNRWA.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit, what is UNRWA and what was the news this week about it?
So UNRWA is the agency that provides like a lot of supplies, a lot of needs for people in Gaza and the West Bank as well. And through they've had
a couple of issues where I think it was earlier this year that I think there was 9 UNRWA staff that were actually potentially connected to Hamas, and they were actually fired. But now Israel is just going to ban them. They've proposed law for that. So if UNRWA is out of the picture, like all the leaders are now like, what is going to happen to Gazans, right? Like what? And they're also afraid of the same thing because they're like, where are we going to get the help that we need? Because they're already on the brink of famine. They're already going through so many different, like there are other diseases, and UNRWA also provides supplies for that. So UNICEF said that they can't even go forward without UNRWA's help. So UNRWA is also the one who was actually kind of spearheading the polio campaign. So that was to vaccinate all the children. So what happens after that?
Yeah. And like when we're hearing these words, apocalyptic, right? I mean, these are very serious things. Some 100,000 people recently displaced from Gaza are basically in this area. It's a scary time for everybody. How is the world reacting to this? What's the general consensus?
I mean, they're like, everyone is just kind of like voicing their concerns about what happens without UNRWA. And I think quite a few leaders have come out and been like, okay, banning UNRWA is like too much, like don't do that kind of thing. But I think the U.S. was saying, I believe so, is what I remember, that there needs to be like a different kind of way that because humanitarian assistance needs to go in. Like that needs to be a thing. So whether Israel decides to ban UNRWA or not, like I don't know what, like it seems like everybody is voicing their concerns, but what action is going to be taken, it's kind of unclear at this point, right? And it kind of is on how Israel is going to, I guess, unfold this.
Yeah, because they said like the law that they passed would ban them in 3 months or something like that, right? I think there's a certain timeline, and whether that's to put pressure on somebody, we'll watch this unfold, and like we have for the past year now, since of course October 7th, the horrible day that was, and everything that's followed since then. Yeah. All right, rapper Young Thug is a free man.
Kind of.
Okay. Explain. Kind of. First of all, who is Young Thug?
He's a rapper.
Okay.
He was arrested in 2022 for supposedly his...
Well, I mean, he was arrested. He pled guilty, right?
Yeah, he pled guilty, but like... So here's the thing. I'm still in the midst of working through the story. Yeah. So I'm going to just talk about the things that I know for sure.
Go for it. What do we know?
He is on probation technically for the next 15 years. And they're going to, and he's a free man, but his probation means this. He can't come back to Atlanta unless it's for a funeral, wedding, or anything like that, which his father is not that happy about. And he also can come back 4 times in his probation. So in the next 15 years, he's going to come back 4 times. And he's required to go to a school or a community organization serving children to talk about anti-gun, anti-gang, stuff like that. So those are the only reasons why he's permitted to come back to Atlanta. But again, there's also like he can't have any affiliation to gangs. And he can only talk to his brother because his brother is is his brother.
Yeah. But he's also a fellow rapper. He's his manager.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
But he can't talk to he can't talk to the defendants of the case or something like that.
Yeah. So he was sentenced to 40 years.
Yes.
So how it breaks down, the first 5 years were to be served in prison, but that was commuted to time served. He's been in jail up until this point, I'm assuming, since he was charged in 2022.
Yes.
Then he has 15 years on probation. And finally, a backloaded 20 years in prison will be commuted to time served if he complies with all of the conditions of his probation. Prosecutors wanted Young Thug to be sentenced to 45 years with 25 years in prison. And like, is this like, who have you talked to? Have you been talking?
I haven't talked to anybody today.
Yeah,
no.
so you're just reading the facts about it. Because it seems like legally, like this seems like it's pretty unique, right?
Yeah, it is. Because he was like 2.5 years that he was already in prison. And then it just came down to, okay, you're a free man. But I mean, 15 years of probation is pretty long, because if he violates anything to do with his probation, he'll end up getting 20 years.
Like you said, he must stay away from the metro Atlanta area as defined by the census for the first 10 years, except for weddings, funerals, graduations, or a serious illness. He can arrive 24 hours before the event, but has to leave within 48 hours within the... I think
48 hours is what he was also given, like, from when he was sentenced. They were like, you have 48 hours, and then I think so, and then they were like, you got to get out of here, in a sense.
And
so.
like, this has been ongoing. There's been issues with the trial too, right? Like, it's the jury selection, all these things.
Yeah.
Like this, he's just like, he's done with it.
It's taken a long time. There was like all those issues, plus the judge.
He was found in contempt of court at some point. Like,
yeah.
Young Thug. I've never heard of him. I don't even think I'd know.
Okay.
Is he a Metro Boomin guy? Is that a thing? Metro Boomin?
I wish I could tell you, but you are talking to the person who knows the least about this kind of stuff.
I'm pretty high up there in terms of people who don't know anything.
I don't know, you were pretty high up there in terms of anything.
How were your Diwali sweets yesterday?
They were so good.
Yes.
We got so much that I kind of like, I think the reason why I'm not feeling well today could be because I had too much sweets yesterday.
And you were worried about your dad having too much sweets, and here you are.
Yeah, because there was cotton candy from Halloween, there was jalebi from Diwali, and then there was also the other sweets, and then there was chocolate. Like, oh my goodness. Not to mention like the 2 pounds of sugar my dad already puts in a tea. So
what do you got going on this weekend though?
I don't know yet. How about you?
Hey, isn't that great? We're having a smoke fest at my buddy's.
Is it exactly what I think it is right now?
No.
Okay.
He's got a Traeger, which is it's for smoking meats. What were you thinking?
Nothing.
Manesa Dhanabalan, everybody.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for doing this. All right. My thanks to Manesa Dhanabalan for joining me today. My thanks to you as well. My thanks to Jason and Emily as well. There she goes, laughing her way outside the studio. I want to thank Mike Corsten for directing today's episode. I want to thank Bill for the pictures behind me as well. Jasmine for running the prompter. Appreciate that. And I want to thank you. And hey, while you're here, make sure you subscribe and like all of our Trending Now social media channels. You see them there on your screen. If you're watching, if you are listening, then it is all at Trending Now CHCH. And while you're liking and subscribing to that, make sure you like and subscribe to CHCH Podcasts. So never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great weekend.